I believe it's right, it worked things.
And it might be something simple too.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Before we start, I just read out, I wish everyone good evening. Welcome to this evening's Committee of Adjustment meeting. The Council of the Municipality of East Ferris has empowered this committee to make decisions on minor variance and consent to several applications on their behalf. Committee is made up of 5 citizen members and 2 members of council. The members are as follows. Bill, please.
Bill Boak.
John Simmons.
Penny Holmes, Mary Hanselman and staff.
Terry Kelly, council.
Greg Curtin, staff.
Steve Austin.
Lauren Ray Cruz on council.
Frank Corbett.
Thank you. As required under the Planning Act and pursuant to policy, the committee is holding a public meeting prior to making a decision on the proposed applications. Committee of Adjustment has not yet made any decisions on these matters, and all comments received prior to this evening's meetings, as well as comments received tonight during the meeting, will be considered in the decision. The committee makes our decisions based on the criteria outlined in the Planning Act that corresponds to the specific application type. The process will be as follows. I'll ask the applicant to present their application in the order listed on the agenda. The committee will ask any questions that they have of the applicant. Staff will then provide their comments about the application and give an overview of correspondence that's been received. Members of the public will present and answer questions if needed. We will allow for a 10-minute maximum time limit on all public comments to the committee. We will then move to a motion to approve or refuse the application. We'd ask that everyone be respectful in their presentations and comments should be related directly to the application. If any committee members have a conflict of interest with regards to any items on tonight's agenda, would they please declare it now? Seeing none, we'll continue. We'll now move to the first item on the agenda. I'll call the meeting to order. Second, please. All in favor? Adoption of the agenda. Mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Bill. In favor? Yep. Accepting the minutes of the previous meetings. Yep. Everyone in favor? Any business arising from minutes? Seeing none. We've already talked about disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Just for clarification, if at any time you think you're in conflict, you can let the chair know as we proceed with the meeting. Okay, thank you. Chair's comments. It's the start of the building season. We only have 2 seasons, winter and building, and it's starting to get going. So I was talking to the Asheville builders, parent builders today, and things are starting to pick up. And by the way, they tell me the price of lumber has gone down a bit. So, you know, save your money. Don't waste the money because you need it for gas. April 1st. Moving right along, ratepayer delegations. Public hearing B 2024-01 to B 2024-03.
That's an old agenda.
Oh, pardon me. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry. 2024-02, Telegeomatics on behalf of Daniel and Judith Alexander, 4 McDonald Terrace. The applicant is seeking a minor variance of zoning bylaw number 2021-60 to permit the construction of a seasonal room and a raised deck. A variance is requested to recognize a front yard setback from 30 meters to 9.09 meters and to permit the front yard deck encroachment to a setback of 6.99 meters in the shoreline. Is someone here to present? Would you step forward, please? Have a seat, please.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, my name is Mackenzie Widmore. I work at Tulloch. So the proposal, this is for a small waterfront lot. The existing house is already non-conforming with the 30-meter setback. The property owners are proposing to add on to their existing seasonal room with a addition of a room of 20.8 square meters, and they will also be proposing to add a raised deck in front of that. That will be 9.0 square meters in size. It does encroach closer into the water setback than the existing. However, the whole large portion of that front yard is already made up of deck, which is a hardened surface that allows for very little infiltration and it's obviously already a disturbed area, so you're just replacing a hardened surface, another hardened surface. There's, in my opinion, very little impact in doing that. And it also is very similar to other developments in this area. So I would say it's in character with that neighborhood. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you. Any committee members have a question? No?
Yeah, so you said there is an existing hard surface and it says an existing raised deck, if I'm reading it properly. Proposed sunroom and then existing multi-level decks with stairs.
Yeah.
Am I getting all that right?
You got it.
Okay, and then the expansion of the seasonal room with the deck would take it no further than the existing multi-level deck.
It'll be placed right on the existing deck.
Thank you, John. Anybody else? Any questions?
Yeah, I know the existing property is already within the boundaries closer to the border than it should be. But a lot of properties historically weren't.
And I presume our new rules are something that's come along between when these were built and now. Okay, so I went to see it and it's very, very close. If we're to do this, do we set a sort of precedent, say, for other people to get closer and closer to the wall?
Yeah, I can take that question. So, yeah, I mean, you definitely have to consider case by case basis. So as you said, our existing rules as far as our zoning bylaw goes are very different with regards to the setbacks we require from the lake, the minimum lot sizes. So for example, the setback from the lake is 30 meters, and that's based generally on our standard minimum lot size, which is 2 acres with 60 meters of frontage. So when you look at a lot that size, it's that setback is proportional to the lot size in the sense that you can have a vegetative buffer, which is intended to be for shoreline protection and preservation, et cetera, while still having the house in a location that makes sense on the lot, centralized, and meets other setbacks. In this case, this lot is just over 0.1 of an acre. So it's almost, when you do the math, it's about 17 times smaller than our minimum. It just fits a scale of the kind of unique situation we're dealing with. It's probably one of the smaller lots on all of Lake Osmondson. So I think given the context and the fact that it is an existing lot of record that does have development on it already, you need to take that into account when you're looking at variance approvals. So I think this is where it's really important to consider impacts of the variance. Of course, looking at numerically, it looks like a significant difference. And then this is the concept that we talk about sometimes at the committee, where if you're looking at a numerical reduction, the percentage change looks large at face value. But when you start considering the context of the fact that this lot is only just shy of 40 meters deep, it's not possible to have any development while meeting the setbacks. The fact that this area is all already made up of decks, patios, hard surface areas, and the only change is that when we have decks at ground level in our zoning bylaw, there's no setbacks required. But as soon as they're over 2 feet, then they do have a setback associated with them. So the addition of the raised deck is part of what's causing that variance, and then of course the addition on top of the existing deck area. So you factor all those in together, and in this specific circumstance, you in my opinion would say, there's probably not a lot of impact to the existing cleared shoreline, hard surface area. But I don't think that would set precedent, say, for another lot that is vacant, especially if you have a vacant lot that doesn't have any development, we're probably having a very different conversation about this.
Now, obviously, it's extremely close.
Yeah.
I guess where I'm going with it, would there be on record that this is what was a permitted deck
hard surface area 10 years ago? Or is it something that was just kind of grandfathered in, it was there and
Mhm.
no?
Yeah, so it wouldn't have been permitted 10 years ago either, based on the bylaws that were in place at the time. It predates even our previous bylaw. So our bylaw has a clause in it that grandfathers things in. So the technical term for that would be illegal non-conforming use or structure. And that acknowledges that something was built legally at some point in the past, has continued to legally exist for the purpose of the zoning bylaw. So there's no real issues with that, anything about the past bylaws.
If I may, that's part of my neighborhood, close to my neighborhood, actually.
Okay.
Maybe half a mile away. And my family built in the 50s. And some people built in the 40s, and this would be an existing lot. And basically it was, there were farmlands that were allowed to lie fallow. It was rocky soil. It was very little farming, just subsistence farming, quite frankly. And when the lots were made, they were made basically for cottaging. There's very few cottages left on the lake, they're mostly homes now, which actually means less impact on the lake. Simply because tourists, if they rent a boat, they'll use it every day of the route that they're renting. Whereas people who live there usually have a camper. But lake looks good somewhere else.
Yep.
At any rate, but there was no rules and regs as far as distance from the lake in those days is concerned. So just a little background, because that's back in the 40s and 50s. And that's when this property would have been a cottage back in the day. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Lauren.
So where is the septic system in this?
I would assume behind the house, the property's owners are actually here.
Okay,
The barn's located behind the house.
It's located underneath the, as you come in the cottage, there's a deck as you come in. And as you go around to the front of the cottage, there's a 2,000-gallon holding tank.
It's a holding tank, not a septic system.
That we dump every twice a year.
Yes, if I may too, the Mattawa Conservation Authority come through, I'm saying about 35 years ago. And got rid of the old septic systems and mandated having holding tanks.
Okay.
Okay, so that happened to a lot of properties that were deemed too close to the lake or not enough property to have a viable septic system.
Okay.
That's when that changed. So that's about 40 years ago, 35 years ago. So
Yeah,
that's why there's holding tanks along that shore.
Cause I was just wondering, like, having conversations about vegetative buffers, like, what is the shoreline like? Can you put a vegetative, like, just to hold it or stop? We don't have erosion along.
No, it's fairly level land.
Okay.
And there's a large hill, but it's on the other side of South Shore Road, which is easily, I don't know, probably 200 or 300 meters away. So there's very little erosion on that area.
Okay, all right.
Sir?
Good. What we did with vegetation in Edinburgh, 2008, we bought the cut in 2006. We did the whole waterfront. We had North Bay Meadow Conservation Authority and North Bay Natural Resources approve it all, and we did a waterfront where we put in rock, I think we called it, and raised it up, and then we had to put special vegetation in to protect the shoreline as well at that point.
Thank you. That's good. Any further questions? Seeing none, anyone's in favor? We have a mover and a seconder, please. Everyone in favor? Carried. Could you have anything?
You should have anyone in the
Oh, I'm
audience.
sorry, the audience. Anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns as to do with this application? Very well.
No problem.
Seeing none, we'll continue on. Mr. Kirk, could you address the applicants, please?
Yeah, do you want me to go over correspondence for this though as well?
Is there any correspondence?
Yes, there is.
Okay,
There's comments from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority just advising that a DIA permit will be required for any development. And then with regards to my planning reports, I went over a lot of the rationale in it, in the question period already. So I'll just leave that unless there's any specific questions about it.
Any questions at all?
Objections from the neighbour?
No.
And I think, Greg, you explained it well that, and I explained that to our new member of the committee that there's new lots and there's existing lots, and there's nothing, there's no new lots allowed in the West Basin. This is in the West Basin, and they've been established lots for a while, as I said, a long period of time. So that's why there's two or three, it's not really two different sets of rules, but one grandfather's in and the other one is brand new. So it does make a difference. Any other questions from anyone? Seeing none, is everyone in favor? It's passed. Yep. And you would see, do you have some advice for the applicants, please?
We'll be in touch with Tulloch with regards to
All right,
the decision.
okay. Thank you very much. You're comfortable, I hope.
I'm just gonna say right now,
Second application is A 2024-03, 2024-08, and 2024-09. Tulloch Geomatics on behalf of Robert and Denise Point, 837 White Nosbonson Road. The purpose of the requested consents are to allow for the creation of two new lots for residential purposes. The owner is also applying to permit a variance to zoning bylaw 2021-60. The applicant is seeking a minor variance to prevent a reduction in the required frontage to 55.07 meters, whereas zoning bylaw number 2021-60 requires 60 meters. Kenzie?
so this is, through you, Mr. Chair, a concurrent consent and minor variance application for a lot on Lake Knoxville Road. There is already a lot carved out of this 22 hectare parcel, and it contains a house. The rest of the property is vacant. The property owners, all they're doing is reconfiguring this lot to capture the house, as well as applying for a new lot. So while I've written my report and the application form to say two new lots, but really it's just a reconfigured lot as well as a new lot. The one severed lot, 1.661 hectares, that's located to the east, will capture the existing house and accessory structures that are on site. And the retained and severed lot, the other severed lot and the retained will be vacant and eventually may have future residential use on them. The minor variance is for 55-meter frontage for the retained. This, in my opinion, is very minor, not only in nature, but also numerical value as well, going from 60 meters to 55 meters. And I believe that's all, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for the applicant?
She answered the question because I couldn't work it out when I went to see it. You've answered them.
Yeah, I'm confused because there is a retained and two severed, but you're saying it's not a severed? It's just readjusting lot line?
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have even,
That's fair.
that might have gotten a bit confusing. If you have the sketch in front of
Yep.
you, there's an underline of a part 1 on a plan.
Yep.
36R, so that's the lot that captures the house right now.
Okay,
So we are just going to
okay,
distinguish that lot, reconfigure it, and then there will also be a new lot right beside it.
okay.
And then you're retained. You could have done this through lot addition, but it would have been
Sure.
way messier.
Any further questions?
Just curious what driveways or roadways or laneways might be here already or would perhaps be off Astorville Road into that retained space.
I know that there is a driveway into the severed lot. I don't want to answer if there's a second or third driveway because I don't recall off the top of my head, but any entrances would have to be approved by the township. And I would assume if there was a issue with that, that would have come out in the preliminary comments. So Greg, I don't know if you have an answer.
Okay.
Yeah, so our planning documents require individual accesses directly from the streets. They require frontage for new lot creation, so any future accesses, so the one separate lot and the retained lot are proposed to be vacant. And at any time they came in for building permits for development, they would need to be issued an entrance permit by our public works department. And so each one of those would have to be its own approved access onto Osterville Road. The driveway that is on site right now actually crosses this, so the 1.6 hectare severed land. That the driveway would actually cross the 1.03 hectare land to the west. So they would need to reconfigure their access to have dedicated access for their lot as well. And that would all be required as part of the finalization and building permits for the vacant lands.
Any further questions from the committee?
Yes, so I noticed in the dashed line, part one, that the west side of it hits Astorville Road.
So you're completely moving that, the existing, completely demolishing, getting rid of the existing part one, and this is the new outline land properties?
Yeah.
Okay. And 1.033 will be a vacant lot. Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, if I may, isn't there retained lands behind there as well?
Yes, so that will be a new building potential as well. Somebody can build that.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Just one.
Or,
So it's saying Astorville Road, but it's Lake Nasbonsing Road?
yes,
Okay, all right. It is Lake Nasbonsing, not Astorville.
Yeah, it is, sorry, I just kind of rolled with it and read off the plan, but it is like Osmond's.
Okay,
You're
okay.
correct.
Okay,
So that's labeled incorrect.
I was trying to find it and then I thought it's gotta be Lake Nasbonsing, so.
Something that we actually notice on some survey plans, and I think that there's a lot of old survey records that label them as like their equivalent, I guess, and so survey plans will sometimes label Astorville Road, Lake Osmondson Road the same, and they'll also do the same with Corbeil Road, Astorville Road.
Okay.
Yeah, I've noticed it on other plans in the past.
Yes, I noticed that and I was just watching everybody calling it Astorville Road and I'm going, I noticed that, so I just.
No, that
really old drawings, they could call it blue track.
Oh, okay.
that was a good point of clarification.
It's, that road's been there a long time. It's a part road for years. Anyway.
If it's really old, it's in Quill.
That's
Written by Quill.
Well, it was the white pine that opened that area, you know. Anyway, seeing any other committee members want to have a comment, question? Seeing none, I pass it over to staff. Your reports, please.
Sure. So I'll go through the correspondence first. We didn't receive anything from any residents in the area. We did receive comments from the MTO and Hydro stating that they have no comments and it's outside of their permit area. We did receive comments today from the North Bay Ottawa Conservation Authority, so they wouldn't have made it into your package that was circulated. But they had requested that they get a final review opportunity to ensure that the septic systems can be adequately placed on both the existing lot that's being reconfigured as well as the severed and retained lands. This is something that we've added as conditions of approval in the past. In this case, their concern primarily lays with the existing septic system. So since the lot lines are being reconfigured fairly significantly, it's a requirement of the Ontario Building Code that a file review be done to ensure that the setbacks from property lines and all of the factors related to the existing system are met. So I would recommend that we add that condition if the committee does see fit to approve the application today.
Do you agree with that? Okay.
And with regards to the planning rationale for the severance, I mean, the existing lot there, I'm honestly not sure how it even got that lot layout in the first place. It's incredibly strangely laid out. So you know, if anything, this is just a good example of making more efficient use of land along you know, a major roadway in East Ferris. It does include a variance for frontage reduction, but the frontage reduction is quite insignificant in the grand scheme of lot layout. I mean, especially when there's 20 hectares attached to the frontage, that it's all, you know, deficient. So yeah, I mean, in my opinion, creating two appropriately sized building lots, they all have suitable access, and there are no you know, environmental features on the site that would give any restraint for septic system or any building setbacks or anything like that.
Okay, thank you. Any members of the public want to make any comments or have any questions concerning this application? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is everyone in favor? Do we have a mover or a second? All in favor?
Oh,
Pardon.
Minor variance application A 2024-03 submitted by behalf of Robert and Denise Point. Requesting a minor variance to permit a reduction in the required frontage to 55.07 meters, whereas zoning bylaw number 60 requires 60 meters be approved. And that consent applications B 2024-08 and B 2024-09 submitted by the same, requesting permission to create twin lots be approved, conditional upon the completion of the standard conditions listed in the notice of this.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. You're in demand tonight, young lady. Third application is B 2024-06. Dawn Geomatics on behalf of Begonia Carpentry, 1750 Corville Road. Person of the requested consent is to allow for the creation of one new lot.
So this is another consent application for a lot on Corbeil Road. The lot is quite large at approximately 40 acres. This is owned by Degagne Carpentry. If you don't know, this is the property where they do propose to build their new shop. So the new shop will be located on their retained land. They are, just for some background context, they're working on their site plan control application. So that should be built hopefully within this next year or so. So that will be on the 22.2 acre parcel. And they plan to sever off 18.8 acres of the west portion, and they're using a existing ditch that runs along the center of the property as their dividing line. I think it goes without saying, they have more than enough lot area and frontage. Yeah, I don't have any other comments, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. The committee will ask any questions of the applicant. Do you have any questions? Right?
Was this property not severed already? What's our bylaw state as far as number of severances?
Yes, this property was severed already, so you can actually see it on the site plan that was submitted. So there's part 2, 3, 4 shown at the bottom of the site plan. So those were 3 residential lots that were severed, I believe, 2 years ago, possibly 3 years ago. At least 2 of the homes are already built. You can see them quite far back from the road. You're driving down Corbeil Road. As far as number of severances, there was previously a hard limitation on 2 severances from a lot. That changed when the new official plan was passed in 2016. So since 2016, the primary test has been the general consent policies and general planning policies, and there's no upper limit on the number of severances. And that was done because just allowing 2 from an individual lot is very restrictive, especially when people have such large tracts of land. So that hasn't been in effect yet since 2016.
But you are correct, it was in place at one time,
Yeah.
back about 20 years ago. Yep. But it changed in 16, but back, my first time on planning was the year 2000. And it was in place then, but 2016 it changed.
So when he severed this piece of property, he severed it with a proposal to build a shop, as stated. That's all that was said about it, about that severed piece of property, if memory serves me right.
So the previous severances that were done, those were done for residential, and at the time, the land was all zoned our standard rural zoning, which permits residential and is primarily used for residential. This property is zoned industrial, and that rezoning was done around the same time. All of the homeowners that bought the residential lots were aware of the intended use of this property as the industrial shop at the time of construction. So that's something that we had asked at the time of the rezoning. So I thought that would be worth repeating for the committee's information.
So does he now have to apply for zoning bylaws?
No, they've completed that already.
Okay. Any questions from anyone else?
So I guess what side? Are there gonna be, is there gonna be a shop on both lots? Or which lot will have the shop on it?
The retained lot, so
Okay.
that's the, you're looking at the sketch, it's on the right side,
Okay,
east,
okay.
that.
And what's does he know, do you know what the other lot will be used for?
To be determined, I think they're still trying to figure that out with our team,
Okay,
nothing set in stone yet.
okay.
That was kind of my question too, if all of that is zoned industrial. And the purpose of the rezoning was to have that land industrial. And now you're severing it to build a shop back on the retained. What's the purpose of the other industrial land? And it just builds questions. Yeah.
Yeah, what I can say, like I said, we don't know for sure yet, but whatever they do intend to do with that property, they will have to go through the appropriate approvals, the biggest one being site plan control. So if they do any new industrial commercial use there will be mechanisms in place. And I know where you're getting at to ensure that neighboring property owners aren't affected by those uses. But I mean, we could, with the zoning now, they could do something over there as well, right?
Yeah.
Good questions. From council's point of view, we recognize the fact that we've had a exponential growth in the last 4 to 5 years. And we're doing it as, we're doing the best we can as far as ensuring that it's done with proper standards and following our official plan, obviously. And that's why and there's a lot of land here involved. And with this company, they own land in other areas as well. But there are a lot of standards to, a lot of fences they have to climb and gates they have to open before it's allowed to go through. So there's safeguards in place. And that's one of the reasons we have a professional planner. So, any further questions, Lauren?
Yes, so in the last meeting for the 3 severed lots on Levine Road, they were talking about road studies. Is this part of the road study that they were alluding to? We didn't really talk about what the road study was.
Yeah, I think, I know that Steve did mention that, and I think that it was probably a little bit more confusing than anything that he brought it up, because that's part of an application that they haven't completed and we haven't received yet. My understanding from talking to him about it was that that would relate to future development on the parcel south of Levine, north of Quay, and then to the east of Corbeil Road. So this property is north of there. So that those lands that they're looking at for a larger residential project don't relate to these lands. So those would be south of Levine. This would be along Corbeil Road, north of Levine. So Yes, short answer is I think that those are different projects.
Okay. Any further questions? Any further report, please?
Sure. So, we received comments of no objections from the North Bay Manawa Conservation Authority, the MTO and Hydro. So just a bit more background. So the zoning bylaw amendment for this one was done in 2001. So it was approved as a general industrial zone, which permits a contractor's yard type shop, which is what they're looking to do with this property. At the time, their plan was to do the shop on this side of the property, or on the retained lands to the south of the stream. And the plan was always, the plan was always to do something different on the other side. And when they did the rezoning, their intention was actually to do some type of self-storage use. And that was actually specifically added as an additional permitted use during the zoning bylaw amendment. I'm unsure whether that is still in their plans. I think that, as Mackenzie said, they're throwing around some different ideas, but it was always going to be something that functionally like didn't relate together. There was the intention was never really to have the site tie together, and in large part that's because there's a very well defined water course that runs right through the middle of the property, and that's also why you see the severance line is kind of weaves through the property, and it doesn't it's not like a straight linear layout like you would normally see, and that's because it forms such a normal natural severance. So that's why the line is shaped the way it is. And I mean, our minimum lot sizes are larger for general industrial lots, but it's two hectares, which is about 5 acres. So each of these still far exceed that size. And when we're looking at severances for industrial lands, we're kind of looking at appropriate size and layout. And we're not so much having a conversation about use right now because the use has already been determined through the zoning. So when council passed the zoning bylaw amendment, that's where it was kind of defined by council that, okay, this lot is appropriate for this scale of industrial development for any type of use that fits within the general provisions for that zone. So the question that we really need to look at is whether this layout and whether this lot orientation makes sense in the context of that type of development is permitted. And I would say it does. They both already have existing cleared areas. They both have dedicated accesses on Corbeil Road. The law layout makes a lot of sense with the way it's naturally separated from each other. And they both have suitable development sites. So for those reasons, that's why I was in favor of it.
Any member of the general public want to make a comment?
Is it just one building they're gonna build, or is it gonna be multiple outbuildings, or just one?
Yeah, so this is kind of what I was just trying to get at about the zoning is what determines what they can build. So the zoning of like the general industrial zoning that's on this property, that's what'll dictate what types of buildings are allowed to be built. And there are no set limitations on the say number of buildings. I know that from preliminary plans that they have been discussing that they're looking at one large shop building. It usually makes more sense to have one larger type building rather than multiple smaller buildings. That being said, I mean, they could change the layout. Obviously building code will dictate certain things like size of building. Our zoning bylaw will dictate things like height. We also have to go through a site plan control process. So that's where the municipality will look at their layout and we'll look at things like their parking areas, their driveway layouts, where exactly on the site their building is, if they have adequate fire routes planned, like those type of things. And that's where we'll ultimately come to an agreement on how many buildings, where on the site they'll be and how they'll relate to each other.
But for now, it's just the one building.
Well, no, for now, they're not proposing any buildings. What they're trying to do right now is sever the property in two. So, you know, when you're looking at the property from the road, there's the stream that runs through the middle. So they're effectively trying to separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question isn't on that side. My question is across from Mo's house.
Yes.
The one building is all that's going up right now. How big is it?
So right now, they don't have a building permit application in for any buildings. They're strictly asking this committee to approve a separation of the property into two. So to the south of the stream and north of the stream.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Any further comments from the public? Seeing none, somebody in favor?
gonna mover and as seconder.
Bill and Frank.
That consent application B 2023-06 submitted by Tulloch on behalf of Degani Carpentry requesting permission to create one new lot be approved conditional upon the completion of the standard conditions listed in the notice of decision.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wait, you still have one.
Moving on, we've got D 2024-07, James and Veronica Holliger, 845 Farmville Road. Purpose of the requested consent is to allow for the creation of one new lot for residential purposes. Veronica, how are you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yes, so we are looking to get an application for the application to sever for a building, residential building lot for our son off of our property. It's a three-acre lot.
Right.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. So yes, we're looking to create a 3-acre lot off of our existing parcel of land at 845, which is approximately 40 acres existing right now.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Mark?
So I guess I have no problem with it, sort of like that lot in the first one that we were talking about that is in the middle, right? And we've had issues with putting a lot in the middle and then it's not against one boundary. Does that, am I?
You're remembering the one where
That's
the
right.
driveway was going close.
Right, exactly. So is that an issue here? Is that like, because it looks like you've got lots of area on the one side.
Determining factor is situation.
Okay,
I can go down that, like, our property runs down.
right,
Go to that rock cut heading south.
Right.
You know, there's a deep ravine there.
Right.
Yes, before that was rock.
right,
And so that's where, and we'd already had an access approved there to go.
Okay.
So we put it in,
okay,
so that's where it's a flat spot.
okay,
And I hear,
okay.
yeah.
So,
Great thinking.
yeah, so really to the, is it south?
Yeah.
It's kind of a ravine and.
Yeah,
okay.
it drops down again, and
Okay.
it gets in that real low spot. that you
Right.
see, which is actually, you know,
Almost field.
right away.
Okay,
Back in the-
okay,
And I mean, the purpose of this is to create a home for our son, which then eventually that property, the rest of the remaining vacant land will slightly be passed to him at will. Right, so he'll end up inheriting that at some point in time, so
Long time.
I hope so. That's fine.
At least 50 years.
So yeah, there will not be necessarily, unless our daughter requires another little spot, but
I know the parts of the property and it's like everywhere else, you work around the shield.
the shield.
Yeah, we're
100%.
similarly Canadian Shield, like everybody else.
Yeah.
Oh, that's for sure. Cheaper to go around and through.
True.
Any other further questions from any? Okay, want to retain property and.
What I see is sight line too. For entrance, which you have the entrance, but that was a
We have the
thought that I had. I see kind of curve that way.
Yeah.
It's kind of placed right in the middle.
Yeah, that entrance, that access was granted years.
Yeah.
Seeing no further questions, would you give your report, please?
Sure. So we received comments of no objection from the Conservation Authority, MTO and Hydro again for this application. With regard to the lot layout, I think it is a good thing to keep in mind about the location relative to other lot lines, because we have had instances where when a narrow strip is left, since it's like the one that we dealt with last year, those can create problems and we should be cognizant of that, definitely. In this case, the location, it leaves somewhere in the range of 100 meters, maybe 120 meters between the proposed northerly lot boundary and the neighbor's lot line at 840 Corville Road. So I think given the space between there, you're not creating a situation that's going to create like negative development scenario in the future. So in this case, I think that there's probably no concern there, but it's definitely something that we should be aware of when we're doing severances.
Oh, good idea. Thank you. Anybody in the public want to have any further comments surrounding this application? Seeing none, can we have a mover and seconder, please?
Right, consent application B 2024-07 submitted by James and Veronica Mulligan requesting permission to create one new lot. Be approved conditional upon the completion of the standard conditions listed in the notice of this.
All in favor? And it's passed. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice to have family close.
It's gonna be nice.
You have to plow their driveway, do you?
It's closer to me.
Snow, right?
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Yes, it could have been.
Any correspondence or information? And anybody have any issues or any questions before we get going? Frank?
I go first.
No.
It's just a comment, in the past. Not this, but in the past, is that they served them, I worked them. When they came in to do a presentation, they came in with overheads or overlays and whatnot. With all the technology we have, it'd be much easier for us and the general public to see exactly, what they're talking about, how they're pointing it out, etc. And I'm just wondering if we could maybe ask them to, when they're doing their presentation like this, to have that available to nearsighted people like me.
I'm finding it a struggle I have to really expand to see anything in there, and the colored graphs or pictures that we used to get were really beneficial too. No, the one in orange, not the part 3. Okay, how big can I expand that?
I would find it advantageous.
Yeah,
Sorry?
I would find it advantageous simply because that way we're all looking in the same area on the same application. And somebody will say, oh, a dotted line on the south side and the river on the east side. And I'm thinking, okay, I know north is the top of the map, but now you have to orient yourself and it might not be oranges and oranges.
Yeah.
This way we'd all be on the same page to look at the same picture.
And I don't think it'd be really that hard with the technology we have today.
What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, we can ask applicants to do it. So the Planning Act says that the only obligation for these type of applications is they submit a sketch. It doesn't say anything about what type or color coded or any type of additional documentation. That's not to say that the committee can't have some additional criteria that they would prefer to see. But I would just say that I don't think that if an applicant came without a presentation, we would be able to treat them any differently or have any type of decision based on their lack of presentation.
So my thought would be if we could just project what I see here on our screen and put it there, then we're even if we use the 2 screens or whatever, at least then we'd all be on the same page. That's the advantage I see in it.
So are you thinking more like you'd prefer like us as staff to put stuff up and us go over or something?
Like right there, and I've seen it happen at council as well. We're discussing something, and all of a sudden we'll say, what line are you talking about? Sometimes up at the pointer and say, over here, there's this, and this, because some of the lands we deal with, some of the problems we have are complex in their nature. The one, Lauren, you pointed out, like the one that came in the middle and was other ownership on both sides of the proposed driveway. If that was on the screen, it would be easy, and just a projection like that, not that the applicants do, I think with our technology, we could put that on the screen.
Yeah, that's something that we could do. So staff could at least put up a site plan at the start of every application type.
Okay,
And you've got those red pointers or whatever
Yeah, no,
The capital.
I think we should.
Yeah, no, we.
the other thing is the applicant could then stand up if they needed to and say, oh, by the way, like right here, there's a depression there, there's a little rocky mound there. That's probably why the Franklin, Bob and Denise, they, if you notice that ground, there's shields showing and there's bogs. So that's probably why the lot line originally, because these are basically, a lot of this land was old farms that allowed, they're now fallow. They were never a big deal, even back in the 50s. I mean, where we bought our land, quite frankly, it was a farm, but they had sheep and cattle and it was basically for their own subsistence. Because there was nobody got out in the wintertime. The people that worked in the farmhouse, the sons, they were laid off from John's Manville back in November and didn't start work again until April. That was reality in the 50s and 40s. So I like the idea, and I like Frank, good suggestion.
Yeah.
But it should be on us, not on the applicant. I think Greg is right. I agree, whoever. Just to have the image up there would be great.
Yeah, we'll at least get the site plan together on an image
Okay.
that we can post.
That'd be super.
In some cases, I mean, I just like to remind the committee, if we receive very poor site plans from the applicant, it may be difficult to put something, very good up there, but
No, I agree.
we'll do our best to get something that shows.
Especially if it's not straightforward. That's what I find. Like,
Yeah.
and I know for a fact, like the address there off South Shore Road, they are very small lots. But what they're doing conforms with that whole neighborhood. And they're all nice little places. I mean, the price of even cottages on the lake now. There's they're above $500,000. So, people that buy it usually can afford to upgrade, and that's what they're doing, renovation. Anyway, that's it, no in-camera required?
I think there may be more.
Hold on.
Although very much was the section 118.
Mhm.
The allowance for natural severance, are we dealing much with that out this way?
Are you talking about the Land Titles Act? Yeah, so the Land Titles Act is a different piece of legislation that we don't deal with very often. But we have dealt with it a little bit. The one notable case where we have dealt with it was the subdivision application by Degonia Carpentry on 1 mile Centennial McPherson. Yeah, sorry, I'll just wait till we're. Yeah, but yeah, it's good.
I think it's an important piece that's maybe to like water, at least I've seen.
Mhm.
How does it affect us?
Yeah,
Sure.
or maybe we'll do the decisions after if we want to have a quick chat about this. But yeah, so section 18 or 118 of the Land Titles Act, it's more or less a piece of legislation or a section of legislation that allows properties, say on opposite sides of a road or something, to be bound together for the purpose of sales. That's the way we've used it anyways. I think it's a lot more common in like Muskoka's Huntsville area, where there's a lot of old cottage lots that have property on the other side of the street, and then they get kind of bound together that way. So we have only dealt with it in recent memory here on the subdivision application by Degonia Carpentry on 1 Mile Road, Centennial McPherson in that area. So on 1 mile, the shoreline cottage properties, they worked out an arrangement where I think 5 different properties purchased land on the like opposite side of 1 Mile Road. And those pieces of property that they purchased from Degonia Carpentry were bound to the properties with section 118 of the Land Titles Act. And the point of that was to allow them, they were very small lots, some of them, somewhat similar to the McDonald's Paris one. So the idea was, this is land that was otherwise not going to be useful as part of the subdivision. I mean, to be honest, these people were already using Degonia Carpentry land for their own storage anyways. So it kind of just cleaned up a bit of an issue that was already existing there. And then they can build a garage or something there. And it is a situation you see in some of the old parts of like cottage country in the Muskokas. But that's, not something we've done a lot here, but that's the example that I've been part of in the municipality where we've used it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Are you seeing that a lot with different real estate deals that you're working on?
Yeah, so Highway 63 with the O and R tracks.
Oh,
There are people who own lots, you know it, right?
yeah.
There are people who own lots on the roadside of the track.
Yeah.
And land on the other side. It's complicated because it's not just simply trying to merge title.
That's very different, I would say.
I think it is, but I've heard about it in two separate circumstances now.
I know that North Bay is currently dealing with a couple circumstances that
Yeah.
I've heard about, yeah. So railways are a lot more complicated because it's the example that I brought up with say a parcel of land on the other side of a road for cottage property. You don't have like a road, you can, just walk across it. And access is almost like guaranteed in a lot of ways. Whereas when you have a railway where it's owned by, CN or whoever, it's not a municipally owned.
Yeah.
Share that's between those two parts of land, and it's not necessarily guaranteed access. So like what happens if a house gets built on if you have a road, land, railway, parcel, house gets built out here, and then there's an issue with the railway and you no longer have access to the road. It's a lot different, I would say, than having the road be in the defining feature.
Yeah.
So is that along Quakeway to second that? Is that an issue there? Is there a train track there?
There is a train track. Yeah, it's not an issue that we've had come up yet.
Yeah.
Do people own on the lakeside or do they just sort of, right? I mean, is it one of those situations that's gonna come up?
It very well may.
Castroville Road where we had that little piece of municipal property.
Yeah.
Suddenly people were using its docks and they thought they owned it and they didn't own it, right? And is it?
Yeah, we haven't ran into an issue with that. I know there was an issue before my time with the municipality at the end of Boyer Road. So just south of Boyer Road, just over here, the railway track runs parallel to Boyer Road there as well. And there's a lot of properties that have a lot of land on the opposite side of the tracks. I forget the specifics of that scenario, but yeah, we probably will run into that issue at some point. And I think it's one of those ones where every circumstance is so different, and it's a situation that, you need some kind of legal opinion on as far as that specific scenario.
Come up on Drew Road as well. I think it's when the railway went through, they signed an agreement with the owners of the property that they could retain the property if the railway pulled up their tracks and moved on. At the same time, they gave the railways, if I'm not mistaken, gave it to Trails Canada. It went to a team of lawyers who decided, my God, look at the liabilities. So they came to the municipalities, I was on council at the time, and said, you can have the land, but you gotta build a fence on either side of the property and in perpetuity. We said, no, thank you. So a private person bought the land. The people that originally owned the property now, parts of it ran through their property. They no longer own the land they were promised to buy back for $1. And where I live, my wife and I live, private road was just put through wherever it was easy. And almost everybody owns land on the other side of the road, but now there's houses on the other side of the road. And obviously they came, I know the people, they came and said, if I don't need more grass to cut going up and down 2 ditches, so have at it. That's fine, but people moving in now, if they have it surveyed, well, they've got 12, 15 feet on the other side of a private road. I can see where there could be issues.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, it just through the course of that conversation with another realtor and myself, both people going through that. My client said, so are you seeing that out in East Ferris? And I said, to be honest, I'll ask because I really don't think so. I don't recall it.
No, not really. I think one of the reasons probably why it's not as big of an issue is most of the lots that would potentially have that issue have adequate land between the tracks and the road to build anything they want to build there, rather than on the other side of the tracks, which is usually what triggers the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause it's kind of like, well, just down this way, even on Tyford Road, like the properties on the north side. There's tracks there as well between there and the highway, but there's a lot of space between the tracks and the road that anything they wanted to build. I mean, most of it's vacant still right now anyways, but there's enough space for a building site that you don't have to get into the, approval from the railway for crossing for a driveway and then the complications with the building permit law and stuff like that. So.
And to your question, you look at the access to the properties down Bondfield. I mean, they're built almost on the tracks. It's phenomenal. They must have rubber bands holding the bricks together that if you have a basement, my God. Because, anyway, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no
That
problem.
was good for clarification. Thanks for bringing it up, John. That's good.
Yeah, you are right, though. It is, I didn't used to see a lot of talk about, that section 118 clause, and it is coming up more often, just generally in the planning conversations.
Especially with what ONR is considering, which is they used to grant crossing permits.
Right.
to that property on both sides.
Mm.
And apparently, and this is from the ONR, they are viewing every crossing agreement. Private residents and a high probability that they will not permit them any.
So they'll rescind their approval. Wow, that would be.
Yeah.
that'd be a nice-
That was the messaging I got.
I mean, that's the exact reason why municipalities are reluctant to grant building permits for things on the opposite sides.
The opposite side, yeah,
They're otherwise landlocked, so, I mean.
yes, yeah. Comes.
And we did have one at the end of Boyer Road where people owned a landlocked lot that had access, but it was basically a trailer.
Yeah.
So they couldn't develop it.
Yeah.
Being bottom line, they could put a trailer on it and use it for hiking and so forth, but not for permanent residence. There's no way.
No, very.
Quickly as well, right? I mean, whoever bought it, just bought it, let's say 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe.
Yep.
And the railroad, won't let them do anything because it's parallel to the property. And of course, the wetlands in behind. So all they can do is put a tent on.
Yeah, exactly. Buyer beware.
But no, they knew it going in,
Okay, well, yeah.
other people, but.
Anyway, we're looking for adjournment. Mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. Everybody in favor? Oh, sorry, you have to read pardon me.
That's okay.
I'm trying to do your job, but I don't know why.
The Committee of Adjustment meeting adjourned at 7:32 PM.